From the shores of Monster Island to the depths of the Hollow Earth, this is a Kaiju United Town Hall, discussing all the important happenings in the Kaiju community.
Welcome, everybody, to the first Kaiju United Town Hall. I am your host for this episode, Nick Crispino, and I am joined with our site lead, Jacob Lingle.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Fellow site contributor, Joseph A.
Hello, how's it going?
And a special guest for this episode and friend of Kaiju United, Yoko Higuchi.
Hi, guys.
All right, so what are these town halls going to be? Basically, they're just a series of impromptu podcast discussions that talk about all big and exciting happenings in the Kaiju community. In this instance, it is the release of the highly anticipated Godzilla -1. As of this recording, it's been out for a few days. Many people have seen it, and it should go without saying, spoilers ahead. So this is your only warning. So I don't know where to kick this off, guys. I have so much I want to talk about, so much to say about this movie, so many thoughts, so many unsolicited opinions. I'm going to hand it off let's have Jacob be the first person to just rattle off his initial thoughts.
All right, I'll go.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure at all. I love the movie. I am an easy sell on Godzilla just because I love the franchise so much that I kind of just enjoy most of it. I don't really think there's a film that I hate, but I really think that this film is something special. It's the most cinematic that I've ever seen a Godzilla film. Just in the way it's presented, the cinematography, the sunset shots. I don't know the cinematographer that was helping Yamazaki, but I will pull his name later and add an addendum because that individual took Godzilla to the next level, in my opinion. That cinematography was just amazing. Of course, the characters were extremely likable, sharply written. They both had humor and heart, and that is something I really like in a Godzilla movie. So, really great presentation. I'll talk more, but I'll let you guys go.
All right. Yoko, you want to go next?
Sure. I thought it was, just to echo everyone's sentiment online who's calling it like a masterpiece and so amazing and phenomenal, and like you leave the theater weeping. I all agree with all those sentiments. I think -1 is such a triumph for the Godzilla franchise. It's such a different take that I'm so happy to see something like this come out from Toho. I just can't sing my praises enough, especially as a filmmaker. Like, there's so many things in it that like I appreciate so much, and also as a Godzilla fan, there are so many things that we see in that film that sort of like blew our minds. And seeing that in IMAX, the crowd was going nuts over so many different places. So just overall, it's such a great film with amazing cinematography, great story, great characters. Music is fantastic. VFX are some of the best to ever come out of Japan, so it's an incredible feat of filmmaking for Japanese cinema.
Can I add on to that real quick?
Go ahead.
Especially with Yamazaki being credited as writer, director, and VFX. Juggling all of that as a filmmaker. I'm sure Yoko can echo that as a filmmaker himself. What a feat. Like, I couldn't imagine directing a film, writing it, and just being over all VFX. That is crazy to me. And somehow he pulled it off.
A jack of all trades right there.
Yeah, he was really cooking with that movie.
Joseph, what about you?
I was baffled in a good way once the movie ended. But yeah, I enjoyed the movie. It was great. I was on the edge of my seats when the middle part and the last section happened. It did a very good job making sure that you're a part of the movie. Like, you can connect well with the characters. Let's see, historic-wise, that was pretty good as well. The CGI, it was a bit wonky at some places, but it wasn't distracting enough. It wasn't like Marvel bad CGI level. It was good.
I don't know what I can say that hasn't already been said by you guys and the fandom itself. I really like the fact that it seems like for the first time in history, the fandom is coming together to like praise the movie. Like, everybody seems to like it, and that's something that doesn't really happen in the community a lot. It's always either split down the middle or like split 3 to 4, like, oh, we like this, I don't like this. But I don't know. It's just I really I'm at a loss for words. Like I saw the movie on Wednesday. It is now Saturday, and I'm still trying to process what I just saw. The effects were great. Like the tone of the movie was solid. The VFX, like Joseph said, I think they were a little wonky at some points. Like there were times where I was watching, I was like, oh, okay, that could have been done better. But again, like my critiques are overshadowed by my praise for this movie. I did like the story. I forget his first name already, but the main guy, the failed kamikaze pilot, how I love his arc. And I think one of my favorite parts was like halfway through the movie when he says, "You know what, my girlfriend or wife, whatever you want to call her, she's right. I need to stop living. I need to let go of the past. I need to actually start living and just like letting go." And then Godzilla comes in and is like, nah, excuse me.
I'm gonna dig up all your trauma because I'm a big lizard.
Yeah, and the soundtrack is incredible too.
Oh man.
I think I found it. I can't say for certain yet because I got to give it another listen. But I think I found a new favorite. My previous favorite was Shin Godzilla, but this one, I think it just does it better. I don't know.
It's a very atmospheric soundtrack by, I'm gonna butcher the names.
It's,
Naoki Sato.
Naoki Sato? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. My Japanese is awful. I apologize in advance. But his score is amazing, like Nick said. And it just, it's very atmospheric. It goes from those tense strings in the background to, resurrecting the Fukube themes for when Godzilla shows up. And I don't care how many times they do that, it's still going to have an impact. Like
I like that. I like that too. I mean, I know Yoko, I saw on your Instagram you don't like to compare this movie to Shin Godzilla, and forgive me, but I was kind of doing that through the entire film, but in a good way. Like I was especially like the soundtrack, I remember in like 2015 when the trailers first started dropping for Shin Godzilla, everyone was like, "Holy shit, that music. It's like it's so dark and foreboding." And then this one did the exact same thing where it's like all high energy, it's intense. So I made that connection with Shin Godzilla. And of course, anybody who's seen Shin Godzilla notices the connection between like the use of the old tracks. Especially, I really liked how they use the Godzilla King Kong versus Godzilla track at the end when they're trying to kill him.
That was nice. I was like, they're bringing back that theme.
Yeah. All right, I'm trying to figure out where I want to go next with this conversation.
They also added up the Mothra vs. Godzilla part soundtrack, right?
Yeah, for the Ginza attack.
Yes.
That was great.
That was
we can talk about the Ginza attack. That's a good segue.
I really liked the Ginza scene, and obviously, it's a nod to the original where he also attacks Ginza in the first one. And a little detail is that he also makes landfall in Shinagawa, I believe, which is also where he pops up first in the first Godzilla film. So that was a good homage as well. I just love the cinematography, the color palette, the VFX. Obviously, it's not going to look like James Cameron Avatar level, but for a Japanese production, like, it looks spectacular. I was surprised by how real Godzilla looked this time, and the vast array of motions that he does, from like bending down to grabbing the subway car to like just reeling his head back up, holding it up in the sky, and just like swinging his tail around. And like, just there's one shot that really stuck with me for some reason, because I don't think I've ever seen it done so viscerally, is when I think Godzilla is attacking like the theater, the local theater, and he's like pressing his entire body against a building and like trying to crush it, and then he like reels around and swings his tail around as the news reporters are like reporting it. That scene was really, really cool.
Agreed.
And of course the atomic breath sequence at the very end is just like mind shattering at the very end, and then you see like the mushroom cloud. It's just it's such a great moment.
It's a heavy topic, but perhaps the first instance of black rain being in a
Yes.
Godzilla film, which
Hmm.
was I was like, oh my god, they went there.
They really went there. Yeah.
Wow.
That atomic breath scene, I was so looking forward to like how it would play out because in the trailers they were teasing us with how he like with the charge up with his dorsal plates coming out and then pressing in a very violent manner. Like I think that told me that hey, you're in to see some brutal shit when he unleashes his atomic breath. And I think it's the first time that atomic is really given to like I think it's the first time that the word atomic is really emphasized in his like atomic breath because that was an atom bomb
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
weird because I don't think they actually call it atomic breath in the movie. They call it a heat ray
You were, yeah.
frequently.
Hmm.
I mean, I've heard so many terms for like fire breath, like atomic breath through in like fandoms and movies. So I'd just consider them all synonymous.
Yeah.
That's
And it's
fair.
also it mirrors the scene in GMK when he first charges the beam, and then it cuts away, and then you see the atom bomb from far away, and the teacher says an atom bomb. So that was really interesting. There's a lot of GMK references in in this movie, which we'll probably get to at some point. But yeah, I just really love that mushroom cloud scene and the pathos the film gives Godzilla as he like roars almost defiantly against the atom bomb to almost say as if like I'm stronger and more devastating than you are, even though you created me. I took that as the message of that scene where Godzilla became even more destructive than the atom bomb, even though the atom bomb was the creation of Godzilla. So that was such a powerful moment to see on screen.
Adding on
It
to that, oh, go ahead, Nick.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, it does seem that Godzilla has a lot of personality and awareness in this movie. Like, he
Mhm.
knows what he is. He knows that he is a destructive force of nature. And I think really the only time, at least that I've noticed, is like in the MonsterVerse movies, where, especially like in Godzilla versus Kong, where they get where they he had that little chuckle after he
Mhm.
hit King Kong out of the air with his atomic breath, but I mean, but that was just it. That's just like a Hollywood like Marvel-esque. Oh, let's throw a little personality in here. This is like the first time I think I've seen an actual serious Godzilla movie where Godzilla is aware of what he is. Like in Shin Godzilla, not to bring comparisons back again, but like Shin Godzilla, he was just a force of nature, and he was also that in the original Godzilla.
Mhm.
In this one, he really knows that I am stronger than these people. I am here to destroy, and that's what I'm going to do. Like it seems, and at some points in the movie, like it seems personal when he like causes destruction. I don't know if anybody caught on that.
No, yeah.
I did. It's like targeting the boats and stuff.
Mhm.
I did kind of interpret Godzilla in this film a little differently. I kind of saw him as more of a confused animal. He is aware of what is going on and what he's doing,
Exactly.
but he behaves more like an actual animal that got irradiated and is confused and angry and upset and in pain. Um, I don't know. It was a very complex version of Godzilla. I think it
Mhm.
encapsulates everything that we just said. One shot
I,
in particular that stood out to me is when he's just kind of relaxed like this and he's looking up at that black rain cloud. It was
Mhm.
very weird to see. I know, such a violent Godzilla just relax for a minute and look up at the sky. I was like,
Mhm.
that is something I don't think
It
I've
was soaking it
seen.
in, you know.
Yeah, he was just taking it in. He was just looking at the
Mhm.
scenery.
Basically, he looked like a dad who had just built a shed, and then when he finally finishes, he's just looking all proud of his work, like I did that. Yeah, that's right.
Looks pretty good. That's about right. It's like
I also want to add one more comment, and I
Yeah.
will shut up for a minute. Um, so I really like the period piece aspect of this movie. Not only did it allow us to raise the stakes a little bit, when I first saw this movie, I thought any one of those people could die or were in danger. They didn't have a Super X or a Mogira or anything like that to bail them out. They had 4 battleships and some cranes.
Hmm.
you know, so not only did it allow the writing to set up a very fascinating way of taking down Godzilla while still applying science. It also really gave us a high stakes Godzilla film where I really feel like any one of those people could have perished stopping
Hmm.
Godzilla.
Moving forward, I think I want to bring it back to the beginning of the movie because I had a lot of thoughts watching that. Like, it got pretty violent. And I had this conversation, coincidentally, I had this conversation with one of my buddies on Instagram, shout out Gabe. Like, we were talking about how violence seems to be sort of absent in the Godzilla franchise.
Hmm.
And how, like, oh, it's all because of these PG-13 ratings. Like, they don't want to play with the idea of Godzilla being rated R, and they don't want to get too violent. Like, they want to play it safe. And then I went to the theater. I think it was literally 2 days before I saw it. And then I went to the theater, and in Godzilla's pre-mutation form, he's like literally eating people, chopping people in half, and tossing them. Like, it got pretty brutal. And I like that because, like, we've never really seen like that vicious side of Godzilla.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing that. Like, I guess I'll just call it a Godzillasaurus because that's basically what it is.
For lack of better words.
For lack of a better term, yeah.
Exactly.
Until they give like a official terminology for it, I'm just going to call it a Godzillasaurus for now. But it was interesting seeing the almost like dinosauric, like Jurassic Park-y sort of vibe as he's biting down on people and then throwing them like just halfway across the area. And it was interesting. I saw it a few times now, and it was interesting. I was like, oh, is this a Toho thing where technically he doesn't eat anyone? He just kind of like bites them and then throws them away. So I'm like, oh, is that a Toho note where they didn't want Godzilla to like eat anyone? Because I remember like King of the Monsters, Michael Dougherty said that like Toho didn't want the Mothra larva to eat any of the Monarch guys in her opening scene. So I was wondering if Toho had a similar rule for Godzilla, whereas like he can't eat people, but like you can. We'll settle with him biting people and then throwing them across the field, but I don't know. But either way, that scene is like horrific, and I love there's that like a gorgeous like one take. There's like a great oneer from like seeing him and then like you pan up and then you see his face coming down and then it pans back down and you see them running away. The filmmaking in that scene is great, and it's a nighttime scene and you can see everything. Like it's so clear. It's great. Yeah, I love it.
I also like the fact it seemed like that whole scene was being told from the soldier's perspective because it happens so quick and so abruptly. You know, you hear the sirens, they turn on the spotlight, and there's this giant dinosaur, and it immediately starts wreaking havoc, and you don't have time to comprehend what you're seeing. You just have to like react. I mean, that's how I interpreted it, and like it took me like a minute to realize like what I was looking at, and that and it even took me a minute to realize that Godzilla was like smaller, and for me to realize, hey, this might be his pre-mutation phase. It's like a Godzilla, and like you said, Yoko, Godzillasaurus. That's what my brain went to.
I like that the explosions lit him up a little bit too.
That was a great shot. Yeah, you see his eye and then like the fire like engulfing him. It's great. Love that shot.
All right, so let's take a step away from Godzilla a little bit. Let's talk about the human characters, because I think for me, the human story knocked it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
I have a specific checklist for what makes a good Godzilla movie, and one of those boxes that need to be checked is excuse me, interesting humans to carry the story when the monsters are off screen. And I think this film did it incredibly well. We talked about it a little bit with Shikishima, his whole character arc, how he can't move on, how he's still fighting a war, how he's like, struggling. What did you guys think of not only Shikishima's story, but everybody's story, like the humans in general?
Sure. Let's see. It's been a while. It's already been since Wednesday since I watched the movie, but from what I could remember, they all had their tiny motivations there. But everyone felt equal. Everyone felt like an equal star together. Like they all felt like the main character. I wish I had more things to say, but they were great. It's like, they were there from beginning to end. Um, Man, I really don't have anything else to say but that, because I'm not like,
All
I'll
good.
echo
Nothing's
that a
so
little
sorry.
bit. It did feel like an ensemble cast film, and I really
Yeah.
liked the scenes on the boat because I'm a huge
Yeah.
fan of Jaws, and obviously,
Yes.
let's get
Yes.
that out of the way. Jaws,
It's very Jaws.
but I love the shot on the boat where they're all on the side of the boat, kind of like Quint, Brody, and Hooper, and they're all kind of like this, kind of talking to each other, because the dialogue and banter between those characters is just left and right, left and right, left and right. They're just talking to each other like real people would, and I found that especially great with the not only the delivery, but the range of emotions that all these actors are presenting. They can go from I hate the government to oh my god that's Godzilla, in the span of 30 seconds, and it's just quick, 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 quick.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I thought this was definitely in the upper echelon of human characters in the Godzilla franchise. I don't know if it's my favorite yet. There are some casts in the Showa series I like a lot, and even some of the characters in the Heisei series I like a lot. Like, I do disagree with. I've seen a lot of discourse among the non-Godzilla community of like people who have reviewed Godzilla -1, and they're like, I've never cared about the human characters in a Godzilla movie ever. I'm like, I don't think you've seen enough Godzilla movies to make that statement, because there are a bunch of good casts in the Godzilla franchise throughout, so I disagree with that. But
Completely disagree too.
yeah, I completely
Show them
disagree.
Final Wars, and their opinions will change.
Yeah,
And that is a hill.
You have
Seriously, no,
cast.
it's true.
That is a hill I will die on proudly.
Super amazing, like memorable character casts, like Mothra vs. Godzilla. But you can't tell me that the main cast from Godzilla vs. Gigan isn't memorable in their own way.
No, you can't tell me that. Or like you care for them. That's a fun story. Like, the brothers kidnapped in Godzilla Tower and stuff is great. But yeah, I was confused when I read that in some of the other reviews. But either way, though, like despite that, like kind of annoying tidbit that I read, like this is such a great cast. I don't want to take that away from them, because this is such a amazing cast of characters. I love Noda the most. He's awesome. The scientist.
Oh yes, that's his name. That's my favorite character too.
He's great. I love him so much. Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah, he even had like a little bit of comic relief, if I'm remembering it correctly. And it's a perfect example of a character that has the right amount of seriousness and the right amount of comic relief.
Exactly.
Unlike what's his name from King of the Monsters, the guy with the guy with the glasses.
Yeah, Rick.
Rick.
Oh,
Where every single line that he had was a fucking annoying ass one-liner. Like, stop.
Yeah, he to me, I am blanking on names, so I'll just describe the role. So the pilot that we focus on, is obviously the soul of the movie. I feel like the scientist is the heart. It's his plan that sees us to the end. It's him that rallies everyone together to, much like Shin Godzilla, sorry to make this comparison again, unite Japan.
I think we should just accept that we're going to be making
there's going to be a little bit of
comparisons.
Comparisons because they're both of the same era, and they're so wildly different yet similar in a way.
I can't help it. I'm sorry, Yoko.
No, I was trying to just to offer a brief tangent. What I was saying on social media about like not comparing the two is like, I guess they were trying to compare -1 or Shin and trying to prop the other one above the other.
No.
Like that's what I was like.
They're apples to oranges to me.
Exactly, they're like completely different movies, and they're both of the same level of quality. It's just what preferences, like your personal preferences, are. Like I prefer Shin Godzilla because I'm like a science geek, and there's a lot of science in that, so that's why I like that a bit more. But in terms of like comparing the two, I can't do it in a way that some of the people on social media have, where it's like, oh, -1 is great, fuck Shin Godzilla. It's like that's not how you judge art, and especially Godzilla films, because like again, like you said, Jacob, they're apples to oranges, so it's like it's just based on personal preference. They're both like masterpieces of the modern Godzilla era. So it's just what you prefer, and that's it. So comparisons are like, it's not the comparisons that I'm against. It's just that propping up one over the other, like, Shin Godzilla's still good. Screw -1. It's like, no, that's not, that you can't do that, or vice versa. Like that's where I'm
Can
like,
I can I
saw
add
that
to
a lot.
that?
I was like, yeah, I saw that a lot, and I was very annoyed by that.
I'm going to add to that. I want to put out something that I've seen on social media. So this film is great. A lot of people are in agreement that this film is wonderful and it's special. I've also seen people do that with the MonsterVerse, and I'm here to say that there's room for both in this world.
Yes.
As fans, we are getting the best of both worlds. We are getting amazing artwork filmmakers that are bringing their bold experimental visions to Godzilla with the Japanese series. And we're getting the fun, heroic Godzilla that the fan base loves with the MonsterVerse.
And
So,
the evil
like,
Godzilla with the Toho ones. Like,
yeah. And it's not great to just, go around going, -1's great, F the MonsterVerse. If you ask my personal opinion, I think -1 is objectively a better film than a majority of those films. It's just my opinion. You can like whatever you like, but
I'm calling the police.
I'm going to agree with Yoko where, like, we don't need to put one over the other. Just say I like this one more. It's okay.
Yeah. Like what you like, and that's it. Like
Guys,
all
that's
you
not
need.
how the internet works. Come on,
no.
we know this. No, but
Constructive thinking on social media, huh?
You don't say. No, but it's like I said in the beginning. Like, it's everybody in the fandom is coming together to seemingly like praise this film. That doesn't happen a lot, and on top of that, we're getting so much from both hemispheres. In America, we've got the MonsterVerse and the new Apple Plus TV show, which, I mean, you can argue, oh, that's a Monarch show, not a Godzilla film, but I mean, TV show. But I digress. And the -1 in Japan. Like, we're getting so much. Like, why the fuck are we spending so much time at each other's throats? I just don't get it.
I do like that this film has kind of united the fan base in a way I've never seen before. Like,
that's what I was trying to get across. Yes,
everybody is saying this film is good. There's a couple guys I've seen that are like, oh, it was mid, which is fine. That's their opinion. I don't agree with it, but
I can definitely see why they would think that.
So
yeah, I can understand.
It's really great to see the community just absolutely come together with this film and to really bond over their love for how pretty well presented the film is across all levels.
Yeah, but just let's reel it back to the characters. I wanted to mention the scientist. I appreciate how honest he was, especially when he was going over the plan to defeat Godzilla. And then when people were like, is this going to work? And he was like, I don't know.
It's a possibility.
Maybe.
It's a possibility.
Maybe.
I'm going to add to that, Nick, and I'll let Yoko go. So I really like that he wasn't I'll call it doom and gloom scientist, like a tragic scientist, like Dr. Serizawa in the original, or Dr. Mifune in Terror Mechagodzilla, or what's his name in Violante. He's optimistic but realistic, and I like that. That's kind of my philosophy in life. So I really resonated with that character.
We see that too often in not only Godzilla films, but just films in general. Like, oh, we've got a problem. I'm the scientist who can fix it. I have this plan and it's gonna work. And then it doesn't work. They're like, oh, what? This scientist, what was his name again?
Noda.
Noda, yes. He was just like, here, I have this plan. It might work. It might not. I'm just going to be real with you guys. So I really appreciate the honesty that they brought to that character, because that's something I feel we don't see in a lot of movies when it comes to the scientist has to come and save the day.
I was a little fond of Tachibana and kind of how, that scene with Tachibana where he dumps water on him and he just starts punching him. How dare you? How dare you insinuate that was my fault? Like, that's real anger. Like,
yeah. And then he comes across like, "Hey, the bait worked."
Yeah. I like Tachibana. I liked his. I guess I'll call it an arc, but the way he comes around was really surprising to me. Where he says, "Okay, you're ready to do the ultimate sacrifice and kill yourself," and and then he just tells him to live. That was really surprising to me, but maybe it's perhaps that off screen he went on that same journey and he put the war behind him and ended his fight.
Mm.
Perhaps.
I mean, I saw that coming from a mile away, like the ending where Shikishima ejects after like flying the plane into Godzilla's mouth. Because when like the night before the big attack, um, Tachibana was like, "Oh, and there's one more thing," and then you can clearly see him
He's pointing to the thing.
pointing to
Yeah.
something in the cockpit, and I'm just like, he's gonna eject. This is like he's gonna. If it wasn't gonna happen as Shikishima was flying into Godzilla's mouth, it was definitely gonna happen like afterwards, like the flashback of like Tachibana going live, because I was half expecting uh, Shikishima to start flying in his mouth, and then they do the cliche thing where it flashes back like, "Hey, it's okay." Like, because I've seen that so many times.
That happens a lot. I also want to just quickly shout out the captain. I think it's Akitsu. I think he's
Yes.
great. The captain, he's awesome. I love that.
He's a
character so
solid
much.
Navy captain. He's just he plays it perfect. I'll add to that, Yoko. So I saw a Twitter post where someone in Japan was tweeting at Yamazaki, and they were like, "If there's an English dub, I want Benedict Wong from Doctor Strange to voice the Navy captain." And Yamazaki.
Oh!
I love that. That would be a
That's
brilliant
interesting.
idea.
So Yamazaki actually replied and was like, "Well, we're not really planning an English dub, but I like that.
They're
That's
not.
what I do." So
They're not playing an English dub.
that's
I guess maybe he doesn't. I don't think the director would be aware of like the dubbing process, because that would just be taken on by the distribution company. I guess I don't think he has any knowledge of that, but
Or is he even
I'm
one
sure-
to make that call?
yeah, I'm sure enough. When the home video release comes out, I'm sure they'll probably do.
they'll probably do one.
English dub. Yeah, they'll probably do one.
I'm on the camp, so this is my opinion. I personally don't think it needs one. I think we're fine just reading it. I understand that some people can't read subtitles that quickly and
Me.
stuff, so it's good
I'm
for
that
people
person.
that need that option, and I'm totally fine with that. But personally, to me, like, we're not dubbing Kurosawa films, so in a way,
Please, no.
I think that legitimizes Godzilla to be alongside amazing Ozu and Kurosawa and directors like that, because we're not dubbing Tokyo Story or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm hot take here, but I've always been a dub watcher ever since I was a kid. It's what I grew up with. I mean, I can't read and focus on the action at the same time. So, like, if it is the case that we're not getting an English dub, that's really upsetting, because I'm actually really curious what an English dub of -1 would look like, because I think the English dub for Shin Godzilla was done really well, and it it made me think that maybe the reputation of Godzilla dubs being completely awful is kind of going behind us, because everything was done really well. They had really good voice actors. It was done with passion. It wasn't just the monotone dubs that we had from the Showa era.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Studio Ghibli dubs. They hire Robert Pattinson, Christian
Those are
Bale,
great.
Mark Hamill. Like, we could easily do that with Godzilla, and I'm not sure why they don't. They
I've
hire.
talked to so many people in the anime community who were like, "Yeah, no, English dubs, they never work. They always suck." I'm like, they kind of don't anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
like those Ghibli dubs are wonderful.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I will die on this hill. English dubs are getting better, and especially Godzilla dubs. And I think Shin Godzilla proved that. I know that a lot of people still prefer, subs over dubs. That's fine, to each their own. But I honestly think that the days of corny, cheesy Godzilla dubs are behind us, or if they're not, we're getting close to that point.
I agree, and even with action films, like I think the dub for The Raid is really great. It's not just a Bruce Lee movie dub that kind of is the same as the Showa Godzilla dubs from the 70s. Like, they're actually like acting in the dubs. They're not just like, "Oh no, there's Megalon, here he comes."
The dub for All Quiet on the Western Front, in my opinion, was pretty solid. So yeah, I think that argument of like dubs are objectively bad is, as the years go on, will become less and less valid. And hopefully, this isn't a perfect world. We can live in a society where sub watchers and dub watchers can come together in harmony.
Yes. Well, we're all getting along. So,
Fun
Joseph.
fact.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, like, I didn't even know that the sub v dub argument was a thing in the Godzilla community. I thought that was just strictly an anime community thing.
I think it's more of an anime thing. Joseph, how are you feeling about everything we just kind of talked about? Like, you got anything to add?
It doesn't really matter which version I see. It mainly depends on the type of mood I'm in. So if like I want to watch the dub, I'm probably just going to feel nostalgic and whatnot. But there's some good English dubs out there, like Ghidra. I do like the Mechagodzilla 74 dub. Let's see what else. I did see. I did. One of you guys said something about having high end actors to do voice acting, like what Studio Ghibli did. I think it all depends on who's making the dub and what budget they have, because if they want high end actors, they're gonna have to pay a lot of money for them. So like if you want Willem Dafoe, you're gonna have to pay like what, 2 million probably. I have no idea. I don't
The
know
English
how
dub
the rates
for
work. But
Shin Godzilla, that was handled by Funimation, I think, right? Like an
Yeah.
yes,
actual,
yes,
like a studio whose
yes.
one of their main tasks is to have good English dubs, and like that's one of their standards.
Yes.
So I think it really all depends on which studio or company is handling it.
That's true.
I really hope it's Funimation again, because they did a spectacular job with the Shin English dub.
As long as it's not the company that did the Shin Ultraman Blu-ray, I'll be fine.
I'll go back to the pilot a little bit and ask a hypothetical just for everybody across this round table. Do you think he should have ejected, or would it have been a more impactful story if he went through with it and he died at the end of the film?
Can I answer?
Go ahead.
I think the only ending acceptable would have been him ejecting, because I think if he did go through with it, it would have supported the idea that the tactics used in World War II were fine. And I think the message of the film is that, like, no, like, we have to not do what we did in the war, because the war was terrible and horrible on both sides. And it was, the film is against the Japanese government for, like, basically manipulating people to throw away their lives for a war that they didn't believe in and they didn't even support. So the anti-war message would not have been clear if he didn't eject. And I was worried for a second. I was like, I know he probably will eject, but I was so worried that he was going to die in that moment, because if it did, it would be not the greatest look for a post-war Japanese film. Like, like if they didn't have him eject, it would basically potentially say like, oh, like, it's fine to use the same tactics that we used in World War II, which is not great. So I was very happy that he did eject in the end.
I agree. It would have rubbed people the wrong way. And I also think that he had too much to live for than he did in the beginning of the film, because now years have gone by. He has an adopted daughter to look after. He has a home that he's built. He's finally he was able to overcome his demons and his own internal war. I think it was also the validation from Tachibana that really did it for him. Like, he just needed that one little push to make him realize that you can eject. You don't have to fulfill your mission that you had in the war. Like, it's okay. Like, because think about it, like, Tachibana was the one who was dragging all the bodies in the beginning of the movie and saying, like, this is all your fault. What have you done? So, yeah, I kind of saw that. If it wasn't for the fact that just one more thing, and then the camera cut and you can see him in the background pointing at the literal eject button. If it wasn't for that, I think everything that we saw instilled and reinforced the idea that he probably was going to eject.
I don't know how to categorize this, but my next question to drop on you guys was, how did I forget her name? How did she survive?
Oh, Noriko?
We see her at the end and she's okay, but
question.
that shockwave probably would have wiped her out.
Yeah. When I first saw the film, I didn't like that decision, but now on my this is my I've seen it now 4 times
Me
now.
too.
Wow.
Yeah. uh Now I'm actually on the side of it, not in terms of a logic standpoint, but in terms of like a metaphor standpoint, because a lot of the people who were affected by the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs, uh some of them were able to climb out of the wreckage, but then died from radiation poisoning, and then that's what happens at the very end, where she has the black thing on her neck. So from a logic standpoint, it definitely doesn't make sense at all. But uh, since the metaphorical meaning made sense, I sort of like forgave it. I'll take that logic leap so that I can get the metaphor at the end, if that makes sense. But at first, I was like, "Whoa!" Like she should not have survived that at the very end. But on repeat watching, I think I did sort of come around to it where I was like, "Oh wait, actually, I like the metaphor that he was going for," and I think uh, for me as an artist, I think if you're gonna go for a message and you have to skip logic just once, I'm okay with that. I think that's totally fine for a story.
Well said. Joseph got his hand up. I'd like to hear what Joseph had to say.
Oh no, you took the question. It was about the ending. Like, how did she survive? The audience that I went to, everyone was confused. Like, what the heck? How did she survive? There was a collective gasp when she appeared on the screen with the in the hospital. But
And they clapped too.
that's
Remember that
yeah,
first screening? Yeah, they clapped at the end.
especially when he ejected, everyone clapped. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah,
so that was nice to see.
Oh, I keep forgetting you two saw it together.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's cool.
but yeah, yeah, that was basically it. That's my only tiny little problem I have with the movie. But if there's a sequel, I hope they expand on it.
Yeah, I think that gripe has been shared, if you can even call it a gripe, or a little criticism has been shared by a lot of people that I've talked to. Everyone was like, "Yeah, I feel like they were asking us to suspend disbelief a little too much with her being alive," and I could definitely see where people are coming from. Like, she gets like thrown by that shockwave,
Mm-hmm.
and
If they had,
like the
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
If they had shown like the entire hospital, like the guy walking through the hospital with other people injured, I think that would have worked well as well. Like you would have believed
Oh,
that
Or if she
she's
just looked a
actually
little bit more
survived it.
banged up, like she looked very like okay, like just a couple scratches, just rub some dirt on, it'll be right as rain.
Probably
You'll
lost
be
an
right as
eye.
rain.
Yeah. Do you guys? So we're gonna venture into speculation territory a little bit. So a lot of fans are speculating because the mark on her neck grows a little bit. If you
I
watch
didn't notice that
carefully.
until the very like as soon
Mhm.
as the camera cut. Like I didn't even notice that she had something on her neck. Whether I don't know what I was distracted by, but I was like, oh wait, what's that on her neck? And then like a split second later, the camera cut, and I didn't even notice it growing.
Yeah,
And
it
a lot of
moves
people
like
think it's in the
slightly.
shape of one of Godzilla's dorsal plates, which I'm still a little bit on the fence about personally.
It's That's interesting. I've heard a lot of different theories about that. Like I heard one theory where it was like Godzilla cells like revived her or something, which I think it's a little far fetched for a movie this like realistic in terms of like tone. I think it was who knows if they make like a Godzilla -2 or something. But
Call it something else, like
Godzilla
-2.
zero, I
Plus
guess. If
two.
it's like -1, next one will be zero, I guess. But
That was the working
if they
title.
do make a sequel, maybe they'll probably elaborate on it. But at least right now, there is no sequel announced. So I just took it as a radiation poisoning metaphor and
Yeah.
nothing like mythological in terms of like Godzilla DNA or Godzilla cells. I didn't. I just thought it was a visual metaphor and not like a practical thing. If that makes sense.
one thing we didn't talk about that I wanted to bring up is you mentioned the tone of the movie. Godzilla's regeneration abilities. Am I the only one who kind of felt like that was an aspect that didn't match the rest of the tone of the movie? Is it just
Yeah.
me?
I
No, I
was
could
okay
see
with
where
it.
you're coming from.
Yeah, because like I mean, if I to me when I see like a Godzilla that can regenerate its body, that fits something in a film like either Shin Godzilla or maybe one of the Showa era movies or Millennium series. But here it's just, I mean, yeah, I guess it kind of works, but I don't know. Like the movie was just seemed a little too grounded to have something like that. If you get where I'm coming from.
I think, excuse me, I think Godzilla represents the fantastical amongst the grounded, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Especially with Godzilla intentionally trying, Yamazaki expressed that this Godzilla is terrifying. He's scary.
Mhm.
Godzilla is not of this world. It's like you know a post-war movie with something that just cannot be. So I'm okay with like the main cast being super grounded with 40s technology and that kind of stuff, but their imminent threat, their terror, their horrifying thing is beyond our comprehension. It is horrifying to see that its whole face grows back, which is one of my favorite moments in the movie.
Oh yeah,
Um,
don't get me wrong. It was definitely cool to see, but like the fact that it happened like that, I don't know, I think I would have bought it a little more if like his half his face was blown off, but he just got up and started moving again, and then when he reappeared, his face is like back to normal, and then like, but we blew his face off, and oh, he must have some sort of regenerative healing ability. I guess it just happened way too quick for me to kind of buy the fact that it fit in the movie.
mm, how do you guys feel about it?
I agree with Jacob, where I think the fantastical elements are sort of all truncated into this one character, Godzilla, and I think that I'm okay with. Like, just kind of just a basic rule I think in storytelling of just like having one fantastical thing in a realistic setting. I think is fine, and I was able to stretch my disbelief enough where I was like, okay, Godzilla can do this, and he has always been able to heal quickly. We just haven't seen it like that viscerally, I think, just like regrowing its eye almost. Like that was sort of very new. But uh, like Jacob said, I think the fantastical elements were all centered into Godzilla, and I think I was okay with suspending my disbelief in a thing that is that big and comes out of the water, which is impossible. So I'm like, it's fine. Like this thing can survive being that tall. I'm sure it can regenerate. Like so,
If,
I was
if
okay
he
with
can
it.
shoot a giant atomic laser out of his mouth,
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
like,
he can
it's fine.
whatever. He can do whatever he wants.
Like I said, my complaints about this movie were very minor and insignificant as compared to what I loved about this movie. It's just something where, I mean, again, I didn't mind it. I just couldn't help but go,
I think if we hadn't had that scene, I don't think it would have held much impact when it came to the ending, where you see the heart beating and you see just cells forming across the heart.
Right.
Yeah, because then, like, I guess some people
throwback
would
to
be
GMK.
confused. Exactly. I guess some people would have been confused, like, why is the heart still beating? Why is there something building over it? I feel like those who aren't as huge Godzilla fans as us wouldn't understand what was going on if they hadn't shown that regeneration scene.
Hmm.
Yeah.
If that makes any
No, I agree.
sense. But that was still a pretty funny scene. That was a great scene, though.
You know, Joseph, you mentioned general audience. That's actually a good segue. I wanted to ask you guys this. So obviously, Godzilla fans love this movie. How do you think this will translate to general audiences? Because I mean, I'm sure there's loads of people out there who will see this and just go, "Oh, Godzilla -1, that sounds fun. Let's go see that." How do you think it will translate to somebody who doesn't obsess over Godzilla the way we do, and they're just looking for a movie to go see?
I mean, I've already seen some general audience reactions already with like I guess it's still a little bit of a bacon number to Godzilla fans, but like my friend Robbie Rotella took his girlfriend that does not care about Godzilla one bit to this movie, and she cried. She was emotionally moved by this movie and the emotional core of it, and I think that's just because it's such a well done movie. Um, is like I said, it's a war film with Godzilla in it. It is if you take out the Godzilla and you just put in another military enemy, you'd have to change a couple things, of course. But the core of it is still there. You know, the kamikaze pilot, what it means to have survivor's guilt and survive of cowardice when everyone around you is dying with bravery,
Mhm.
and what that all means. So I think it's a really emotionally resonating movie, just at the heart of it. And then,
Mhm.
this person is a Godzilla fan, but they just reviewed the film and I read it. But they said, as a parent, the father and kind of daughter element to that movie made them feel a lot of emotion, because would they do the same thing for their daughter? You know, whatever it
Mhm.
takes to stop this imposing, massive, out of this world threat, whatever it takes, right? So I think
Mhm.
audiences resonate with that kind of storytelling a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah. I also
Yoko,
saw a lot of reactions on Twitter from like film critics who have no uh, stake in the Godzilla fandom, and they were all praising it, and like film Twitter is going crazy over Godzilla minus one, and I saw a lot of people posting about it, and even seeing it on Thursday, 2 nights ago. There were it was a good mix of like Godzilla fans and just like standard regular movie going audiences, and I have this thing where I like hearing people talk about movies in the bathroom. It's like the most like raw reaction. Like right after you see a movie, you all go to the bathroom and like you're
Yoko,
on
are
the
you
line.
spying on people in the bathroom again?
Oh, absolutely, all the time. That's that's my hobby. But it's so fun, like standing in the men's line and just kind of like hearing what everyone's saying, and like the bathroom like echoes, so you just hear everyone's thoughts, and like
Yeah.
everyone's just like beaming about it. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, that was so great!" and like, "What an amazing movie!" And I think that's what really sold it to me, is like hearing that reaction, like not from Godzilla fans, because obviously this is our bread and butter. So like we're not a part of this conversation. Like obviously all of us will automatically have seen minus one. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It doesn't matter. But just seeing general audiences like flock to this movie, and a foreign film no less, like that was so heartwarming to see, is seeing so many people gathered in the theater to experience this movie, like among other Godzilla fans. And I heard like a bunch of people like explaining Godzilla to other people after the movie. They're like, "Oh yeah, so by the way, so in '54, Godzilla was about." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So like the Godzilla fans are doing their part to like explain
Yeah.
the history of this.
I'm doing my
So
part.
that was fun.
I'm doing my part.
That was great.
Yeah, like general audiences seem to be loving this movie just as much, or at least they have a peak interest. Like my parents were in town for dinner last night, and my dad was like, "Hey, what's with that new Godzilla movie? Is it any good?" So like people are interested in it, and
Mm.
I think, and this goes back to the subs and dubs thing. I think I like the fact that people in the general audience are liking it, despite the fact that it's a foreign film, and like they have to read subtitles. Um, and I think that the story is easy enough to follow that you
Mhm.
don't necessarily need to be reading the subtitles to figure out what's going on. Like it's pretty straightforward. You know, survivor guy's got survivor's guilt, and he's struggling with his own demons, and there's Godzilla.
Mhm.
So it's really awesome that that's not turning the fact that it's a foreign film in subtitles is not turning people off, which is something that happens pretty often. Like it's big reason why people don't want to go see foreign films,
Yeah,
and it's
I'm
just
really
getting
happy about that.
yeah, and it's just getting like so much buzz. I don't know if
Mhm.
anyone saw what I posted on Instagram yesterday. Some morning show in Texas.
I
They had
saw that.
Oh,
their
yeah, I
resident
saw
film
that. Yeah.
critic. Yeah, the resident film critic. He was listing through. All right, so here's what you want to go see at the movies this weekend. We got the Beyonce movie, Migration. Oh, and you want to go see Godzilla. Every 20-year-old guy I've talked to says, "Oh, I can't wait for this movie." So I just love the fact that the buzz is out there in the general audiences, and people are taking Godzilla, Japanese Godzilla for that matter,
Mhm.
seriously. You know, it really at first it really took an Americanized Godzilla in 2014 to get people in the general populace talking about Godzilla, and
Mhm.
now to see people talking about a genuine, authentic Godzilla film the way that they are, it's just something so heartwarming, I guess, to see.
Yeah, no,
Agreed.
I agree. I had a few interesting encounters earlier in November. I was in Orlando to go to Disney World for my mother's birthday, and on the last day, I went to Animal Kingdom and I wore a Shin Godzilla T-shirt, and I had three people look at my shirt and go, "Oh, do you have tickets for -1?" I had that asked once from a Disney cast member, and like another guy just standing in line, and another guy at the TSA at the airport. Like they just pointed out my shirt and said, "Hey, do you have tickets for -1?" I'm like, "Yeah, do you?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm going to go see it when it comes out." I'm like, "Wow!" Like the reach of this movie is so incredible, and I don't think uh, since movies like Parasite and RRR, we haven't seen a foreign film get this much buzz and hype around it. And I'm so happy that it's Godzilla the one to do it. And yeah, I'm just very very happy that a Japanese Godzilla film is getting so much buzz. And then next week we have another Japanese film, The Boy and the Heron, that's going to come out, and that's also going to be another foreign film. There is a dub for that,
Miyazaki.
but yeah, Miyazaki. There's a
Yep.
dub for that, obviously, but still, like, it's a foreign film that's going to get a lot of buzz. So it's been a good like month for like big auteur Japanese cinema, or like auteur
Yeah.
mainstream cinema in Japan.
Was
It-
Parasite
Absolutely.
dubbed when it was released? Just curious. Was it
that
No,
dubbed?
it was not.
2019.
Okay.
No, yeah, oh yeah, no dub for Parasite.
No dub
Yeah,
for
no dub.
Parasite. Yeah, there was a South Korean film, Bong Joon-ho.
So it's interesting because it's not saying that it's impossible, because Parasite is more than enough proof to
Mhm.
show that
Parasite went
foreign
all the way.
films can.
Yeah, it was
exactly.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's Parasite is more than enough proof to show that foreign films can succeed in the American mainstream.
Mhm.
It's just so awesome to see it happen to Godzilla.
Yeah, finally.
And I wanted to expand on my point that it has the potential to get more people introduced to Godzilla, and
Mhm.
because
This will be a lot of people's first film.
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And it's interesting to see because there's been, in the last 10 years, there's sort of been like a new wave of new Godzilla fans thanks to the MonsterVerse films. But now it's happening because of an authentic Godzilla,
Yeah,
which
Mhm.
is really cool. Like
that's
I
fantastic.
can't wait to go to G Fest in like 5-6 years. And like when I'm just talking to somebody, I'll run into somebody say like, "Oh yeah, I went to go see Godzilla -1. I'd never seen a Godzilla movie before, and it just inspired me to go and find out more about this franchise, and
I
now
can't
I
wait.
love it, and now I'm here
Mhm.
because it's gonna happen." And
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
and maybe it'll grow G Fest by proxy. Like I haven't talked to the people behind the scenes about this yet, but I'm pretty sure if I asked one of the G Fest committee people, they would tell me that yeah, we saw a pretty high spike in attendance after
I can tell you
2014
that as an
came out.
attendee. I can tell you that right now. The difference from I went in 2012 and 2013. I missed out on 14, but when I came back in 2015, it almost doubled. It was crazy. I was like, "There's a lot of people here."
So for those of you that don't know, G Fest is held at the Hyatt Regency, and right across the street is the Rosemont Convention Center. I can only hope that because of this movie's popularity, G Fest will grow enough so we can move into a proper convention center
That'd
and
be
not
so
have to
cool.
rely on a large hotel space. So we're approaching an hour. Do you guys have any final
Oh,
thoughts?
I was gonna ask, do you think this movie is gonna win any awards at the
It
Oscars
already
or in
has.
Japan? What do you think?
Not in America, I think.
What makes you say that?
Because I think Japan would have to select it for the Academy, and I don't think they will. If they smart, they will. Because every country is allowed to select one film for the best international film award, so that will depend if Japan selects -1.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're going to select Monster. Which
Yes,
is
the new film by the director of Shoplifters, because Shoplifters won
yes,
the
yes.
Palma de
I
Oro.
think they're gonna. Yeah, I think they're gonna
Corrida.
choose
His name
that
is Corrida,
film.
right?
Yeah, Corrida. Yeah,
Corrida.
yeah, something like that. Yes, they're probably going to choose that film, so that would probably disqualify -1 from entering the Academy race. So I don't think in America it'll win, but there is a high chance that in the Japanese Academy Prize, it might it might be a runner for best picture, best director,
Yep.
and such. Definitely best visual effects. That's a shoo-in at the Japanese Academy Prize. But I feel like in the
Absolutely.
States, yeah. I feel like though in the U.S., Japan will probably not be selecting -1 for the award circuit.
I feel like it would be in their best
Ooh.
interest though, because remember, Yoko, when I interviewed you a couple of months ago, you mentioned that when you were a PA on Shin Godzilla, and as it was coming out, people were like hyped, and you compared Godzilla to the MCU over here,
Mm-hmm.
like the way people get hyped about the MCU over here. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, again, you may make a pretty solid point, but I want to piggyback on your comment. If they are smart and it's in their best interest, I think they'll
Mm-hmm.
pick Godzilla -1.
Mm-hmm. I think the Academy voters would also like it as well. So if they want to go the interesting route and pick -1 for the Academy Awards, that would be incredible. I don't know if it'll get nominated, but I think it'll have a high chance of getting nominated. But yeah, I don't know. The landscape right now is a bit tricky, so I'm
Yeah,
curious what
I
they'll
agree
do.
with Yoko on that one. I think Koreeda's going to get it, and
Yeah,
no disrespect to Koreeda, man, he is a incredible director.
yeah,
He is
great
one of
filmmaker.
the best working directors in Japan right now,
Yeah,
alongside
so good.
Yamazaki and all
Hmm.
these wonderful directors. So,
Yeah.
it did win, didn't it win?
Oh yeah, it
Is it
won
the
something recently,
Hochi or
right?
Hoichi? I'm sorry,
Yes.
guys. Japanese bad. My language
Yeah.
skills. It did.
Yes,
It did
I think
just
it did win
win.
something. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. So I think that's a good indication of where it'll end up, at least in the Japanese award circuits. It'll definitely be up there
Yeah.
with Hareda's Monster this year. So I think it'll be a tight race. It's kind of like seeing like Oppenheimer and Kills of the Flower Moon and Past Lives like battle it out for Best Picture in the
Yes.
States. I think it'll be the same thing
Absolutely.
over there in Japan.
I got
But
one more
yeah,
question, if you guys allow.
I was also just gonna add a comment.
Go ahead.
Part of me kind of doesn't want this to be nominated for an American award, because that means it runs the risk of losing. And if if an authentic Godzilla film gets to the Oscars and loses, the fandom will lose their shit. And
Oh, that's right. That's
I
I
just
haven't
Oh
don't
even
my
thought
want
about
to
god.
that.
I
see
never
the.
thought about that.
Can you
Yeah, you
imagine?
got a
Like the
point
fandom will
there.
be on fire the morning after the Oscars.
Boycott the
People will be
Oscars.
losing. Yeah, like oh my god! Like
Yeah,
you think this fandom is?
seeing how they've handled that one guy that gave a
It's
negative
one
review.
Oh
guy.
God. Okay.
It's one.
Can we just briefly, just as a tangent, just talk about that?
Yes,
That's ridiculous. Like he posted a bad review. So what? Like that's his
I
opinion.
don't
Like
agree with
who
it.
gives a
I don't
shit?
think it's a. I don't agree with his review, but if he
he's
didn't
not
like
even
the
that big of a
movie,
Yeah.
he didn't
YouTuber.
like the
Who the
movie. It's all
fuck
right.
cares?
It's fine, guys. Like, and also like, again, like, why are we listening to Rotten Tomatoes? Why can't you just like
Go
follow
see
your
it for
opinion
These
yourself.
are
and
the same
yeah, do
people.
it. Yeah.
These are the same people who were touting, "Oh, Rotten Tomato scores don't matter," when King of the Monsters was getting shit
Right, right.
back
And
when it was
now,
getting released, and now all of a sudden, Rotten Tomatoes score matters. Like
so
all this
annoying.
is doing is validating the reputation of a toxic fandom.
Yes.
Someone DM'd me because I went on a little bit of a tangent on my stories about this last night. They said, well, "What are you talking about? The Godzilla community doesn't have a toxic reputation." I'm like, they kind of sort of do. Like for the most part, everybody's pretty good, but we do have a little bit of a toxic reputation. It's just like when Moist Critical gave King of the Monsters a poor review, and then everybody went goblin mode on him, and
Goblin mode.
Goblin mode.
alls that did was make him go on his podcast and I quote, call the Godzilla community a bunch of limp dicks and how we're a
Yeah.
bunch of butthurt oversensitive babies. And now all the people that listen to his podcast who don't know the Godzilla community have this preconception that we are a bunch of oversensitive, butthurt babies who will just flat out attack you without remorse if you talk shit about our
Mhm.
community. Like,
And that's not
they're just taking his word for it because they don't know. They're like, oh, I don't know the
and they
Godzilla fandom.
won't
I guess I'll take Charlie's word for it.
and
And
they won't
that's exactly
go
what's happening now
exactly. They will not
with this
go
Adam guy.
watch these movies, hey, it'd be better if Moist was like and if I'm not blaming
He
him
said
at
he
all.
loved King of the Godzilla versus Kong, though.
Yeah. But you see, the perception is, oh, this fan base attacked me because they didn't like a movie. But if nobody attacked him, he would be like, I didn't like this movie, but you should check it out for yourself. So
Right.
it is directly the community's fault for making that happen.
I'd also like to state for the record, I did watch his review because I watched a little bit of his live yesterday, and he said, I bet half the people saying that I'm wrong didn't even watch my review. Well, Adam, if you are listening, I think you are wrong, but I watched your review.
I did too. I watched the whole thing. I don't agree with it, but that's okay. I'll add a final comment to this for anyone listening because, we're all doing this on behalf of KU. Let's make the community a better place. We all just talked about what we liked and did not like about this movie, and none of us threw mud at each other. I was like, hey, Nick, I don't really agree with you, but here's why. And he was like, oh, that's cool. It's up to the community to come together for a movie like Minus One.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's up to us to make it a accessible place for people who are watching Minus One as their first film. If they watch Minus One and they go look at reviews and they see that the Godzilla fan base is going to come after you because you're like, it was okay. They're not going to watch more movies, guys. That's plain and simple. Look at the Star Wars fandom. We do not want to become the fandom menace. So
the Phantom Menace.
So I'll get off my soapbox now, but I just want to come out and say
put
that
all our energy into praising this movie as a fandom, uniting as a fandom, and not waste it on a small-time YouTuber's opinion. Like that's not good for anybody. Let him have his opinion.
Or even if you didn't like the movie or thought it was mid or whatever, just spend that energy into something you like. If you don't like this movie but you like Shin Godzilla, talk about why you like Shin Godzilla and maybe sell somebody that hasn't seen it into watching Shin Godzilla. Or if you don't like this and you like Godzilla versus Kong, sell people on why you love that movie. It's okay to not like stuff, but it's more awesome to share why you love things. And that is
we're all friends here. We're all friends.
Yes.
There's just too much negativity online, and that's sort of why I stopped writing negative reviews and stuff anymore, because it's just become too toxic to discuss cons so deeply. It's like you don't gotta just say what you liked. You don't gotta and filmmakers read this stuff. Like they have the power to go on Twitter or Instagram and read what you write. It's not like a vacuum.
Yes,
right.
So there are more eyeballs than you think.
Yeah. So be respectful, be nice, like what you like, dislike what you dislike. Just don't harp on stuff. Yeah.
Can I ask one more question before we wrap up?
Of course.
Sure.
What's next? Where would you like to see this go? What would you like to see next from Godzilla in Japan? We'll say Japan because we know the MonsterVerse is coming and doing stuff. So, and you could be realistic and say, I think this is what's coming, or you can throw the ball over the fence and go, I want to see Yamazaki do what he did with Godzilla the Ride and make -1, but with multiple kaijus fighting with the same tone or, whatever. Go for it.
Yeah.
I want to see a Japanese Godzilla movie return to giant monsters fighting.
Yes.
I mean, I know that sort of seems like it's the Americans' job right now, which is fine. I like the MonsterVerse movies, but I want to see the Japanese do it again. I think the Reiwa era in general, I kind of like to refer to it as Toho's experimental phase because there hasn't been a lot of consistency. There's been a lot of experimenting with the animated stuff. I would love to see a sequel to -1. I kind of don't want this to be a repeat of Shin Godzilla where we get a cliffhanger that leads nowhere. But I think in general, I would love to see either a sequel to -1 or another live action movie where there are two kaiju fighting. I want to see how a modern day Toho handles live action monster fights because we've only seen it in animated form from them. Well, I mean, I guess if you count the the short films that they've been
Mm.
releasing these past Godzilla days, which, I mean, yeah, but I mean, those don't have the budget of a feature length
Yeah,
film.
for
But
sure.
it would just be interesting to go to the movies and see a Japanese Godzilla film that isn't a solo Godzilla film.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Joseph, go ahead.
You know, let them take their time. Let them take their time with the movie. With another movie if they make one. Take your time. Don't rush it. Don't be like Marvel and push multiple projects into 1 year. Because look
Very
where
good
that's
take.
bringing Marvel right now.
Very good take. I
They
love
have
that.
lots of projects being pushed back. Blade is in production hell. I was so hyped for that movie, but I digress. Take your time. Make a good story. Make good characters. Make good action. As I guess as long as they don't remake, so-called reboot the franchise, like the Millennium series did with each movie, then I'll be fine.
So, yeah, I will echo both of your sentiments from Nick and Joseph. I would also like to see more kaiju battles from Toho because obviously, we had Shin Godzilla and -1 that we have the meaningful Godzilla where it's like it's solo. It's a thought provoking film.
It's a thinking
that
man's kaiju film.
Exactly, and that's what the original is. So, I'm glad we have two films in the modern era that are on par with that original 54 film. But it would also, like you said, I think if we're going to honor the legacy of Godzilla, that means also honoring the other part of Godzilla, which is the kaiju battles, which like arguably that's what Godzilla is more known for, at least internationally, than the atomic metaphor. Since again, judging from the people who saw it on Thursday night, people were like, "Oh, is it a atomic metaphor?" And the fans were like, "Yeah, it's based on this." Da, 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 da. So a lot of people have had no idea. And I remember when and we discussed this, Nick, I think for when we talked about Shin Godzilla. When Shin Godzilla was coming out, people were like, "Oh, wait, is Godzilla a nuclear metaphor? I didn't know that." And that's the Japanese public, like they didn't even know that. So kaiju battles are basically what Godzilla is pretty much known for around the world, even in the native Japan. So it would be great to see Toho return to that place, whether it be a sequel to a sequel to -1, or if they're going to do like a reboot and then start the story from there. Maybe that's fine too.
Mhm.
Whatever Toho decides will be fine. I guess one very small sort of conceptual gripe I have with -1, which I hope Toho will do something differently moving forward. It never deterred me from -1 or reduced my enjoyment of it, but me personally, I prefer Godzilla movies are focused on the present and not the past. I always thought Godzilla was meant to be a reflection of Japan of the now. So when 54 came out, it was a critique of the Japan of 54, and then as it went on, like in the 60s with the economic boom, there was more of a anti-capitalist, anti-commercialist, and then in the 70s when Japan was going through like the record pollution era, like Hedorah came out, and that was an environmentalist film, and then and it just went on from there, and then Shin Godzilla was a reflection on the Fukushima disaster. So I like that -1 is a period piece because it's very different from the other films, but I guess for me personally, I prefer a Godzilla film is a reflection of current day Japan and a critique on that. So I hope moving forward, obviously, I like this -1 world, so keep this world, and if you're going to do a sequel to it, great. I want to see these characters come back again because I love them, but I would prefer if -1 or if they do a -1 series, that is the only period piece Godzilla film that they or series that they do. I prefer Godzilla being like set in the modern day and critiquing the country or the society, the government, or the economic world of Japan of the now. So I hope Toho takes that lesson.
Can I, before you answer, Jacob, I want to piggyback off of what Yoko said real quick about the general audience. And it kind of goes back to what I was talking about, how the general audience is getting hyped for this. So this past G-Fest, I hosted a panel for Godzilla 98's 25th anniversary, and somebody asked, some question along the lines of, "Oh, do you think if they made their original idea, it would have been better?" And my answer was, I think it would have resonated better with a general audience because, and this also applies to -1 because people who aren't necessarily Godzilla fanatics just know Godzilla as the big lizard from Japan who fights another monster. So I think if it if the next installment of a Japanese Godzilla movie has him fighting another monster, it will and if it's done as well as -1, it will get the general audience just as hyped. Because like if the general audience is getting this excited about a solo Godzilla film that's done incredibly well, I can only imagine what the buzz would be like if they make a Godzilla versus movie that is done just as well.
Yeah, that would sell a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's why people go to see the MonsterVerse movies.
I like it. All right, I'll close out this question. I think we're echoing the same sentiment with the next film needs to be a versus or a monster fight or just have another one another creature in there. Because we've had, when was the last time we had a Godzilla versus another monster fight in a feature film from Japan?
I guess
Final Wars.
20 years. Yeah. Just about. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of slightly agree with Yoko, slightly disagree. I love the period piece aspect just because, like I said, it raised the stakes. There wasn't a Super X flying around. It was just a breath of fresh
I like that
air.
too.
You know, I would love to see Yamazaki come back and do what he did with Godzilla the Ride, but with a sequel with another monster in it. Because I think he's very capable of doing that. And I think you can combine the elements of a serious, threatening Godzilla film like -1 with a action-packed kaiju spectacle. Because, I mean, the Gamera trilogy kind of did that. And GMK kind of did that. Well, while keeping that tone and the seriousness. So you could have double the calamity of a giant, battle between kaiju and then show the aftermath of what that really looks like. I really think you can go that far. So
if they were to do a movie, would you like a classic Toho monster returning or a original monster from Japan?
I'm cool with both. If we do a classic monster, can we let Mothra, Rodan, and Ghidorah sleep a little bit? I don't know. There was someone in my Discord that was like, they should bring Megalon to the MonsterVerse and make him like a super world-ending threat. And I was kind of
do that with Gabra. I will pay extra at the box office.
Oh my god,
Gabra become a world-ending threat in the MonsterVerse.
Not to tell Godzilla to repeat the Marvel formula, but we've seen Marvel take D-listers and turn them into formidable opponents or formidable characters.
That's true. That's very, very true.
James Gunn would have to do it then, because only he can do something like that.
So I mean,
right? He's the one. Yeah.
Look at what Gemstone did with Megalon. Like that'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Realistically, it'd probably be Anguirus. Maybe.
Yes.
I don't know.
Right again.
Like if we're not doing Big Five, we're doing Anguirus, which is cool. I think Anguirus would fit very well into the -1 world. You'd even do kind of a similar scene as the opening sequence of -1 and have Anguirus, do his thing and kill a bunch of people.
Yeah, that would be cool. And also, they did had plans for the world of Godzilla. I wonder what happened to that. That would be interesting. If they go ahead, Jacob.
Supposedly that was for the branding of Godzilla. They just wanted the world of Godzilla to be
I see.
Global T-shirts, merch deals, that sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe they're planning something else.
Something about making solo monster movies and making them interconnected like the Marvel movies, and I'm I don't want them to copy the Marvel formula, but they were the ones who did the connected universe thing in the 60s and 50s. So exactly. It's if you want to go back to that, I think that would be really cool if you had a really good story to tell and an architect behind it, maybe someone like Yamazaki to helm at least the overarching story and just give it to the other filmmakers. That would be really cool. But who knows? I think it's a bright future for Godzilla ahead. Let's see.
All right, so should we end it there?
Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point. I really think we covered a lot of it.
All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the first ever Kaiju United Town Hall. We don't know when we're going to do another one of these. Again, the point of these is to discuss big happenings in the Kaiju community as they happen. So whenever the next time is, my name is Nick Crispino, joined by Jacob Lingle, Joseph A., and special guest and special friend of Kaiju United, Yoko Higuchi.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.